my name is Emily, and this is the Delight Knits podcast, episode 3. This is where I like to talk about what I'm knitting on, some yarn dyeing, and just where I get to geek out and be part of the community, the knitting community. So I am filming in a different location because my daughter is awake. It is not nap time right now. So there's a possibility through this door a 2-year-old could come running in, or one of 2 dogs. So I may or may not try to edit that out depending on where it comes in, kind of like my husband's sneeze on the last episode. So we'll see how this goes with them in the house and awake. So as I said before, my name is Emily and I'm from Southwest Arkansas. You can find me on Instagram as delight_knits, and you can find me on Ravelry as delight knits, one word. And I also, in my first 2 episodes, I forgot to mention that I do link everything that I talk about in my show notes, so my project pages to my Ravelry, and I usually put Ravelry in all caps before that link, so that way you are pre-warned if that is not accessible to you. But I also try to link to like the shops that I talk about, Instagrams of other people, YouTube channels of other people that I talk about, just to help show you where I find everything. And if you have any questions, you're always welcome to comment or email me. My email is delightknits@gmail.com, and that'll also be in the description. So today is October 24th. I do have my show notes right here, so that's what I keep looking at, and it's helping me stay on track and make sure I don't forget things like mentioning all the links and stuff that I add in there. So it is Sunday, October 24th. I have just traveled back from a long weekend in the Dallas area. My sister got married on Friday, so it has been a very long weekend with everything, and my 2-year-old took it like a champ, and we were all just exhausted and slept a lot yesterday. So we're happy to be home and ready to get jumped into the work week tomorrow. I just want to say right now at the top of the episode that I am super thankful for everybody that has kept watching my episodes and subscribing and commenting. I'm loving all of it. And it's just exciting to see where everybody's coming from and what people think of what I'm knitting. Besides, my husband, who's just like, yeah, that's cool. I'm sure we can all relate to that. So this week, so I podcasted 2 weeks ago exactly, I have no finished objects. I've mainly been working on one project, and as you can guess, that is Shawlography. Clue 2 was a lot of knitting. I will save that project till the very end of the episode instead of the end of my WIPS, because then it's easier for people to not see it if they don't want to be spoiled. So that's when I will show that WIP. But I have no finished objects this week. None. This is actually the most projects I've ever had on my needle. Well, not ever, but I usually like to keep very few projects on my needles. Well, right now I have 4, and I will cast on a 5th within the next few days. So I'm hoping to get some projects off my needles soon. Hopefully the Shawlography. There's only one more clue. But the first work in progress that I will show you, I cast on right after that episode that I recorded last week, and I kind of showed off the yarn that I was using. It is just a vanilla sock. The yarn I'm using is Daisy Stitch Co. It's one of a kinds that she does sales on every now and then, and this is one that I bought. This was a while ago, like a long while ago, and it's just been in my stash, meant for socks. But I thought that all the oranges and blues were gorgeous for this fall season. So all I have started on that is one tiny little cuff. That's it. And it's actually like this side, let me pull that out a little bit. This side's pretty like has more of the neutral, and then you turn it over and it's got all the oranges and blues. I'm wondering if that's gonna start pooling all the way around. I'm interested to see. But I do have, this is a 2x2 cuff, so 2 knit, 2 purl, 2 cuff, and I'll do 20 rounds. And then I think I will do a 3x1, so 3 knits, knit 3, purl 1 for the leg, and then a heel flap and gusset for this sock. This stitch marker is by Sassafras Knits. I love the simplicity of it. I've got a few other ones by her and a progress keeper. So that is my vanilla sock. That probably won't get much love for a little bit longer as well. I usually try to keep a vanilla project for lunch knitting, or if my toddlers are around and I can get some knitting done, because it's easy to just drop. I don't have to really think about where I'm at or an end of a row type of thing. So that's that one. My other project was the fail from last week. My other vanilla knitting project is my daughter's Musselburgh hat. Actually, let's go back to my sock. So I obviously was knitting that on a 9-inch circular. And it is a Chiaogoo 2mm. So it's US size 0, 2mm. So my next vanilla project was the fail from last week. It was my daughter's Musselburgh with the fingering held with mohair. And if you remember from last week, that thing was like huge on my head. Well, I ripped it out. The freezer trick did work for like ripping it out of the knitting, but when I did that, I balled it up with the 2 strands together, and then they weren't like evenly spaced, so I had to separate those out from each other and ball up the mohair and the fingering separately. And man, that was hard. Luckily my husband did one part and I did the other, and it just took the time of like untwisting it and all that, so it did take me a while to do that. Luckily he was happy to help while we were watching TV. But that fail is completely ripped out, and I have cast on. Jeannie, get out of here. Told you a dog would disrupt. I have recast it on and gotten pretty much, I think, farther than where I was. So this is marking where I finished the increases. So here is my new hat, and it does fit. I've tried it on multiple times, and I actually used it to test out a size for my cousin this weekend, and it fit him well. So multiple times, multiple people, this will fit her. So this is how far I got. I want to say, where's my progress keeper? That was 9 inches from the start, and I'm not sure how much I'll be able to go. I'm thinking I was trying to get to 12 or 13 because I'm not planning on doing a fold-up brim. The yarn I'm using for that, this is actually all I have left because it was leftovers. This is Mace of Skeins Fairy Dust, and let me check. Fairy Dust on her club base, which is an 80/20. And then this is Ruby and Rose's yarn on her mohair, Delicate Rose, with on her Playful colorway. So those are both from sample knits that they let me keep the leftovers on, which I'm super thankful for, and now they're gonna become a hat for my daughter. She's got a big head. She's got a huge adult-sized head. So, which is great because that means this will get used a lot more than just when she's a toddler. So I am knitting this using a US 3.25 millimeter my Chiaogoo red shorty set. And if you saw me post on Instagram on Wednesday, one of my cords actually like broke right here. Ginny, get out of here. One of my cords broke right here. And so luckily as you saw in the last episode, I had gotten in some of the 14-inch cords to actually make a 16-inch long needle. So I just switched it out, but I'm down a cord from my set, from what came with my set. So luckily, I got that cord and everything worked out, and I just am knitting away. This is actually my current vanilla project because my goal is to finish it before the 31st, which is a week from today. So I want to finish, or this is my vanilla project at work for my lunch knitting, and I would love to finish it for the We Share Needles and the Crafted Pearl KAL, the Show Us Your Muscles KAL. This would be my third Musselburgh for that KAL. So I'm hoping I'll finish it, but I'm not worried about it. So we'll see how that gets done. But it's progressing nicely. She loves the colors. She says it's purple, even though it's more pink. Purple is her favorite color. But you could draw some purples out of there, of course. So that's kind of why I did it. So that is that one. My third WIP is one that you've seen multiple times as well, is the Like a Cloud cardigan. And I actually only put like half a repeat on this because I was so busy with Shawlography. So here is my progress marker of where I was at, and I literally, maybe a full repeat. So that's how far I've gotten. Both sleeves are done. Just got a little bit left on that. So going on the body, that'll eventually get done. So with this one, I am using, my yarn is a mess. I've got yarn barf in here like crazy. So this is Ruby and Rose's yarn, and I am using Driftwood on her, Driftwood from her spring collection on Soft Rose is an 8515, and then the Mohair is Delicate Rose on her base, Common Ground. And so I'm holding these two together, and I'm loving it. I'm ready for it to be able to use it. Was cooler last week in Arkansas. Like, I took shawls into work to wear because they're a little bit easier than jackets. They don't get as warm because your arms are free. But I can have it cover my back. But we get back from Texas and it's like 80 degrees. I'm like, no, come back. Cold weather. Hopefully it'll come back eventually and stay. So that's that project. I am knitting that on my 3.5 millimeter needles. It's my Ginger Pride, or Ginger set from Knitter's Pride, Ginger interchangeables. And I love the interchangeable needles. They're the best. Let's see. So my last WIP is my Shawlography, which I will show at the end. But since then I've gotten, since I'm showing that at the end, I have a couple of acquisitions I can show you. I do have Addyson of Ruby and Rose's yarn contacted me and asked if I could knit her another Fascination shawl sample. This one is in her Unbreakable Vow and Golden Hour colorway that she actually has on her site as a kit. So this is her Fascination shawl, and it is in black and white because I don't like to print in color, and I have written final draft because we went through like 7 or 8 drafts and this was the final. So it is a beautiful pattern, but you should look on her Instagram and YouTube channel to see all the pictures, and she shows it off pretty well. She actually shows off on her latest podcast, and I will link that podcast, but the Fascination shawl, that the first Fascination shawl, I knit her as a sample and tested her pattern for her. It's the Eye in the Mirror and Common Ground set. So this one is the Unbreakable Vow and Golden Hour on soft rose as well. So this is all the yarn I will be using for that. And I'm super excited to get started. This is what I'll cast on. My goal is to finish it in 5 weeks. It is a pretty big shawl, but if I focus on it, it'll happen. But with Shawlography, it may push a little bit. We'll see. But it's just so gorgeous. So Golden Hour, I've actually showed you before. I've gotten hers on soft rose again, and that's what I'm going to use for my Like a Cloud. This is her Unbreakable Vow. She just does speckles so awesomely, and they're so different and they're so sharp. I'd love to go learn speckling from her. So that's that skein. And they're all just so different. Like this one has a lot of red, but it could just be how they're twisted up. But it's gorgeous. I'm excited to see it knit up. And so that's not technically an acquisition, but I gotta show you the yarn that I received. I don't buy yarn that often, so when I receive yarn, I'm gonna show it to you. So that uses a US 5 3.75 millimeter, and that is actually, so I loved, or it's so much easier to use a metal needle with all those different stitch patterns and stuff. And that's the same size I'm using for my Shawlography. And I obviously preferring a metal needle, I'm not going to use that size out of my interchangeable ginger set. So since I received these last week, this has the 3.75 millimeter, but did not have a long cable, obviously. So I went and bought the 37-inch cable to go with it. So now I've got, which I kind of needed to do so I could have a magic loop option for that kind of stuff for hats to get all the way down into the crown and crease. If I ever use the bigger needles for the hat. So I bought this at Mckinney Knittery when I was down in the Dallas area. My parents are not far from it, and it's actually 2 minutes from where I had to get my car serviced. So perfect opportunity to run to the yarn store. I did not buy any yarn. I'm a little overwhelmed right now with all my projects on the needles and what my travel and everything that's coming up. I was not ready to spend money on yarn. So I did get quite a bit of knitting on Shawlography done this weekend because I had to drive to Dallas. My husband loves driving, which is awesome for me because I get driving to my sister's wedding. It's about a 3.5-4 hour drive. I had finished or gotten to the baubles section at section 2. Those baubles, man, they take forever. That row took me pretty much forever. But I had half of that row left, and then I got one of the short row sides done, almost done. And then on the wedding day, while we were getting ready, I had a little bit of downtime while everybody else was getting ready too. I finished the wedge 1 and went on to wedge 2, and I finished that one today in the car on the way home and got to start on clue 3. Here is my Shawlography, and I might have to back up for it. So 2 weeks ago, I had only just finished this section. I think it was section 2, where it was completely off the needles on itself. So I had to go in and pick up all around it. Let's see, let me scoot over. I had to pick up all around it here and do this section, the little slipped V section, and then the little I-cord which people are calling worms. I find that funny. One video I watched, he was like, with these, I see myself playing with them while I wear it. And I'm like, yeah, that's gonna happen. So I had finished that, and then I started on section 2 that Friday that it came out a week ago. And section 2, this shawl has been very intuitive. It's one of those, you read the first few repeats and then you just go and make sure you do the same number that you need. So section 2 is those the grid, so to speak. And then the welts, those welts took forever. They turned out pretty good. So I had to pull them out, so to speak. And then the next one was the triangles, and then the bobbles. That took forever and a day to do. And then you come over here to see the wedges. Let's see if I can get it all pushed to one side. I think I've only got it on a 32-inch cable. It's a lot to handle. There's one side and the other wedge looks just the same. So I didn't finish it in time to start clue 3 on Friday, but I did start clue 3 today, as you can see. And I just barely got into it. I did choose the brioche option. I love doing brioche. It's very, same thing, intuitive. Like with these wedge sections, it says to like use a stitch marker, but I didn't even use a stitch marker. It slowed me down. So my floats, as you can see with all that, I've got some funky ones. I need to I think it's just because of how knitting in the car and all that. So I will have to go through and rearrange them later. But man, those 5 across floats are not fun. I had to do those on his, the Slipping Tiles shawl and the, Winter Lights shawl, and I was like, I don't like all this stuff. These slip stitches over 5, you can't get your floats. That's a lot. And then of course they're in this. But I did start the brioche section. I've done 1 of 5 repeats of it. And we'll see how it goes from here. I'm hoping that I can finish this because it doesn't take that long. Or it takes, there's 415 stitches, over 400 stitches on it right now. So each row is going to take me forever, but it's not as many sections as clue 2 was, if that makes sense. So there's actually the wrong side for the brioche. You can kind of see it starting where this is the Cabernet, and then the right side's the Sand Dune. And so this yarn, if you don't remember, is all yarn that I have dyed myself. So let's see, I can start it at the beginning. So my color A is Cabernet, and it's literally just the Cabernet color from the dye that I used. Color B is this main color that's used all throughout this. It's Sand Dune. Color C is a teal, and it's the same thing that's using the V's. That I used a navy and a green to make, and I love it. It's my favorite. And then this one's just a teddy bear brown, and then this one is a mustardy. You can kind of see it more down here. It kind of pops quite a bit with the colors that he says to do it with, and it looks a lot brighter than what it actually is with the Cabernet and the teddy bear brown down here. And even in the slipped V's section. Everything else is just darker. That's my Papa color, obviously. So that I used a bright yellow and the teddy bear brown in a very little concentration or variation to it. And that one turned out really well too. So I'm excited with this. The bear yarn that I dyed came from, I've tried multiple different places. This one came from Yarn Undyed. I'll have the link below to like the fingering yarns that I chose from. But this is 100% superwash merino, and it is gorgeously soft. I love it. Hoping, so clue 4 comes out on this Friday. So hopefully in 2 weeks when I talk to you again, I can have this finished and some of my Fascination shawl done. We'll see on the vanilla projects, and I definitely will not touch my Like a Cloud. That's just gonna go on the back burner. I think that is about it that I have to talk to you today. I may not stay on schedule with podcasting. I mean, I'm lucky I had the time this afternoon to podcast because we left early and got everything unpacked and laundry started, and now it's just a waiting game with laundry. So I may or may not in 2 weeks be able to podcast. We'll see. I've literally got something to do or something planned every weekend until January. So my life is going to be hectic. Now, most of those weekends will have just a little bit of car knitting. They may be an hour trip, but an hour's an hour. I can get quite a bit of knitting done then. So we'll see how that goes. But it was nice getting to chat with you about all of my WIPs and feel a little bit better now. It's not like, it seems like a lot, but it's really not. As I said before, I've linked everything that I have talked about in this podcast down below in the description box. You can just hit the little arrow and go down. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you to those who have subscribed and have continued watching. I really, really appreciate it. So I hope y'all have a good week ahead. Thanks. Bye.